All of this is what is called in law guilty demeanor. The behavior of the White House in relation to the Commission from start to finish only makes sense if the official story is a lie and the truth needs to be kept secret. The term whitewash doesn't do justice to the report of the 9/11 Commission. Omission-riddled inventive cover-up, maybe? The Commission finds that the ultimate reason the events of 9/11 took place was a failure of imagination. They ought to know. Imagination was something the Commission had in abundance. The Commission imagines U.S. intelligence received insufficient specific warnings of an impending event. Even though CIA head George Tenet says in an unguarded moment that the system was blinking red, the Commission imagines there's nothing to go with. When we return, an American researcher on the number of published warnings.
A community rates low on an information scale when the press, radio, and other channels of communication are controlled by only a few people. And if books and newspapers and the radio are efficiently controlled, the people will read and accept exactly what the few in control want them to.
Welcome back to The Great Conspiracy, the 9/11 news special you never saw. American Paul Thompson has created the definitive timeline of events related to 9/11. It's drawn exclusively from published reports. Thompson takes almost an hour at the Toronto Citizens Inquiry to list a fraction of the published reports dealing with early warnings.
Then in late August, so according to some news reports from Der Spiegel and Die Zeit, and it's also reported in the BBC and Haaretz in Israel. This is really interesting. Supposedly, Israel gives the U.S. a list of 19 terrorist names. So there are 19 people on the flight, and here they're giving 19 names. We don't know if they're the exact same list. But we do know, according to these reports, that 4 of the names are the same, including Nawaf al-Hazmi, Khalid al-Midar, Marwan al-Shihi, and Mohammed Atta. So these are like the big leaders of the 9/11 attack, and here Israel is saying that these people are inside the United States and planning an imminent attack. Then early September, Egypt warns the U.S., saying that Al-Qaeda is in the advanced stages of a, quote, significant operation, unquote, against an American target, probably within the U.S. So, you know, just as an aside, remember that virtually every one of these things I've been talking about is talking about an attack inside the U.S. Remember that George Tenet said that all the information they had pointed to an attack overseas.
In the context of this program, it's important to note these warnings are from individuals, agencies, and whole governments who are obviously not in on the plot. It should be observed that in the main, the controversies over who knew what and when about the attacks are diversionary mini-dramas that reinforce the official fiction. What these individuals and agencies and governments discover are plans and patsies being prepared to play their roles.
Even if it's the most charitable explanation, and we say it was only incompetence, that incompetence was so severe. I mean, how many warnings do you need? And not only that, but it was followed after 9/11 by a cover-up. And as it's often said, it's not the crime, but it's the cover-up that, you know, that you end up going to jail for. That, you know, between the incompetence and the cover-up, that alone should lead to impeachment of President Bush and all of his top people.
Speaking of Bush and his top people, the Commission imagines, page 35, that at 8:46, when Flight 11 hits the North Tower of the World Trade Center, neither the President or anyone, quote, in the White House or traveling with the President knew that Flight 11 had been hijacked at 8:14 that morning. Wrong. The Commission imagines, page 39, that as late as 9:30, quote, no one in the President's traveling party had any information that other aircraft were hijacked or missing. Wrong. The Commission imagines it can get away with such claims, even though millions of people saw TV news reports about the hijackings on CNN beginning at 8:48. The 9/11 Commission fails to ask many, many questions. Why, for instance, was protective cover not provided for Air Force One? The Commission makes no mention of the extensive connections between the Bush and bin Laden families. The Commission imagines, and it's utterly right, that the media will fail spectacularly in their duty to notice these and other glaring omissions. The Commission counts on the media failing to be skeptical or to ask probing questions. As columnist Lawrence Martin puts it, you would think that given the presidential record of duplicity, Bill Clinton on Monica, Ronald Reagan on Iran-Contra, Richard Nixon on Watergate, Lyndon Johnson on the Gulf of Tonkin, John Kennedy on the Missile Gap, that journalists might catch on one day. Not in America. Martin adds, if media buttons weren't so easy to push, it's a safe bet that the terrorism threat wouldn't get half the airtime. Well, half the airtime would still be billions of hours. The Commission imagines, and it's right again, that the New York Times will devote pages and pages of coverage to the Commission's report without batting an eye at the shortcomings dealt with in this program. Subsequently, scores of New York Times stories quote the findings of the 9/11 Commission as dependable truth on anything to do with 9/11. The Commission imagines, and it's right on the money, that TV networks will air without question and newspapers publish without question this alleged exchange on 9/11 between the FAA's Herndon Command Center and FAA headquarters. I call it the report.
Do we want to think about scrambling aircraft?
Oh, God, I don't know.
That's a decision somebody's going to have to make probably in the next 10 minutes.
Can we hold it right there? Imagine anyone, say yourself, learning of a major emergency. A neighbor calls to tell you your house is on fire. And you say, yeah, somebody's going to have to make a decision about that in probably 10 minutes. The fact is that on the morning of 9/11, there's a good chance that you leaped into action. Millions of ordinary people did. They call family and friends to turn on the TV. Many, I was one, try to get through to loved ones in New York. We find the phone system down. We call others to see if they'd gotten through. And they call us. But at FAA headquarters?
Everybody just left the room.
Yes, sir. I've noticed that. When there's a really big emergency, such as we have with the report here, key people just walk out of the room with fishing rods. When we come back, comments about the FAA and the 9/11 Commission report from David Ray Griffin, author of the book The New Pearl Harbor, Disturbing Questions About the Bush Administration and 9/11. Welcome back. David Ray Griffin's book, The New Pearl Harbor, is widely admired as the definitive critique of the official story of 9/11. Griffin has gone on to draft a critique of the report of the 9/11 Commission. Griffin concludes that the Commission sets up the FAA as the fall guy to protect the U.S. military and thereby the Bush administration. In one case, the Commission claims officials at FAA headquarters had to debate whether the report of a hijacked airliner with a bomb aboard was enough to justify bothering the military. The Commission, says Griffin, portrays most FAA personnel as hopeless bunglers. In fact, in Griffin's words, guilty of criminal negligence of the most extreme sort. Yet, this is the same Commission that says it cannot find any particular people deserving of blame. A remarkable contradiction. Another one. The Commission itself points out the FAA did have one truly unprecedented task to perform that day. Namely, immediately landing thousands of aircraft in the air wherever they were. The Commission agrees the FAA, and I quote, executed that unprecedented task flawlessly, unquote. Is it not strange, asks Griffin, that FAA personnel carried out this unprecedented task flawlessly and yet failed so miserably with tasks they had been performing on a regular basis? Additionally, Griffin observes, according to the Commission, the U.S. military is itself blind, being wholly dependent on the FAA to inform it about what is going on in U.S. airspace. The commissioners would have us forget, as they do, the billions of dollars NORAD spent building detection systems second to none. As Thierry Meyssan writes in his book, Pentagate, the military in fact possess several very sophisticated radar monitoring systems, incomparable with the civilian systems. The website for one of these systems, called PAVE-PAWS, states it is capable of detecting and monitoring a great number of targets that would be consistent with a massive submarine-launched ballistic missile, or SLBM, attack. Are we to believe, Griffin asks, that our military's radar systems, which could simultaneously track dozens of missiles, could not track a single airliner headed for New York City? Griffin and others list several serious matters in which the 9/11 Commission shows no interest. They include the puzzling nature of the collapse of the Twin Towers. Jet fuel cannot burn hot enough to melt structural steel. Why surface-to-air missiles at the Pentagon were not triggered to protect the building. The question of what hit the Pentagon. The hole in the building was much smaller than a 757 would make. The connections between the Bush and bin Laden families. And the startling case of World Trade Center Building Number 7. This and other overwhelming evidence ignored or explained away by the 9/11 Commission, which should be called the 9/11 Cover-Up Commission, suggests 9/11 is planned and executed at the highest levels of the U.S. government. People forget what immense powers and resources governments and shadow governments have to organize covert operations, fabricate false evidence, destroy real evidence, issue misleading statements, organize cover-ups, and generally make things happen through deploying agents, career inducements, bribery, and threats, subtle or otherwise. Governments have the powers to kill, maim, and imprison, and they use them. One example, it's the endless arrests of suspected terrorists, the vast majority eventually released without any charges being laid. On any other subject, this would create a huge outcry. And of course, governments have the powers of propaganda, PR spin, news management, and, not least, secrecy. In the face, though, even of this overwhelming evidence, people still find reasons to remain blind to the possibility that 9/11 was an inside job. They say a conspiracy this large could not be kept secret, but most large covert operations are kept secret. People say they, meaning the Bush administration, wouldn't dare, for fear they'd be found out. As for being found out by the media, well, what's to fear so far? Upholding the U.S. Constitution obligates one to guard against enemies, foreign and domestic. The founders of the country included that for good reason. They knew that for centuries governments have turned toxic. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and not just from outside threats. The trumpeting of outside threats, in fact, is the commonest ploy used by internal rogues. Today's media feast on, profit from, and join in the trumpeting of outside threats and the demonization of designated villains. We expect more of the media than we've been getting. We expect them to remember something of history, to be watchdogs for democracy, and to have some backbone. Won't just one major paper do what the Washington Post did with Watergate? Get onto this and not let go until the rest of the media have to pay attention? I've been a media critic for 35 years. I've watched the media become more and more corporate, more and more ideological, more and more dishonest, more and more part of a power structure which manufactures and manipulates fear and excuses death and destruction, and thereby become complicit in it. But I've also learned a big lesson, belatedly, and that is that too many of us want to be shielded from troublesome truth, want our inner child to be reassured, want, in short, to be lied to. With knowledge comes responsibility. We, who are finding the scales falling from our eyes, must also find the courage to make our media and government accountable. many peaceful means for doing this still exist. This is Barry Zwicker, signing off for The Great Conspiracy, the 9/11 news special you never saw, but that I still live in hopes that you will.